gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone, the #1 basketball show in the entire United States of America. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, the dynamic duo, the 1-2 punch you lean on to get you your hoop stuff. All right, folks, big milestone today, and a huge shout out to our zoners. All right, 125th show today, Pete and I. Many, many great guests, many, many great shows. It's been an honor, a privilege, and also always, as we do, thank our watchers, our listeners on the radio now. It's just been a great ride, Pete. What's your reflection on that?
I've learned so much. I love doing shows like this where I just learn things. And you're such a wealth of knowledge, and the guests you bring on are so great that I'm learning stuff. Because I'm not the basketball fan that you are, and I'll never pretend to be, but I'm learning stuff every week, and it's fun just listening sometimes and waiting and saying, hey, wait a minute, and asking a question based on that. It's just really cool.
Right back at you, because I've learned a tremendous amount from you as well, and I think that's always a great relationship when you have mutual growth in both directions, and I think that's what made this click. Folks, this is the book we've been talking about. It's a Bronx basketball tale by Danny Monahan. It's a great read on college basketball, what's happened since the 1970s all the way up till now. I urge you to get it on Amazon Books. Pete, we're going to start off in Pete's Corner today, where Pete formulates, postulates, and hoists 3 bombs my way, and I fend off as best I can without any foreknowledge of the questions.
All right. Speaking of books, Steph Curry's got a book out there where he says that the basketball players of today are the most skilled players ever. So why doesn't that reflect in the ratings or popularity of the sport right now?
Well, I disagree with the pretext and premise of his question, but it's not translating, so that would be a really good query for someone to ask Mr. Curry. I think that the skill level now that they have, obviously, shots are being made from further away. Seth Curry's one of those examples of that, the great, great shooting, but that's not to say that that couldn't have happened in another time. It's just that basketball players didn't do that back then. They weren't in that frame where they were looking to score from all levels of the court and had proficiency doing that. But what I do is I kind of stick to the numbers. You know, nobody scored 100 points in a basketball game since Wilt Chamberlain did it. There were times, you know, where you've had some amazing performances. We're going to talk about some of those later in the show. But I think when we go in this retrospective look, I really think it fails to meet the expectation of excellence, honestly, because there were great players in every single era, and there are still great players playing the game today. Maybe a little differently, maybe a little more athletically, but the basic tenets of the game are the same, and what you need in order to be a successful NBA professional are exactly the same as they were in 1968, 1969, when I first started watching this thing in earnest. You know, when I was an 8, 9-year-old kid watching the New York Knicks, Willis Reed coming out of the tunnel in what I consider to be one of the greatest moments in basketball history. You know, but I really think that when we look at this, it's like saying, I think LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. You hear people say that all the time. And then you say, have you ever seen Michael Jordan play? Have you seen Kareem play? Have you seen Wilt Chamberlain play? And when they answer no to that, you can tell that they're just having a little bit of difficulty drawing from their expertise upon the whole picture. And so when I look at a guard like John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Jerry West, Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, great guards back in the day, they were the great guards of their day. And then you move into, you know, the New York City group of Pearl Washington, Kenny Smith, Kenny Anderson, Mark Jackson, you know, the great point guard play that came out of just 5 boroughs. You know, I think that it was all great. And I think to look at it in retrospect and to say, oh, well, this was better than that, I think that's possible, but the numbers don't really bear that out. The shooting was really good back then, too. The shooting's pretty good now. The problem that I think Steph Curry would have something in delineating that argument a little bit better is, why does everybody shoot the ball from all over the place now? Back in the day, it was much more role definition, much more red light, green light, yellow light, a lot of coaches used to use. If you're Steph Curry, you got green light. If you're Klay Thompson, you got green light. If you're Draymond Green, you have red light, which means don't ever shoot the ball from the outside. Set screens, get to the rim, do different things that you can help to do the team. But, it's very difficult for coaches to mitigate that right now in their locker room, to honestly say to somebody who they're paying money to now, in an NIL deal or in a professional contract, which greatly exceeds the coach's contract. It's a little bit difficult to create that power dynamic where they're absolutely listening to the coach in that term of being an absolute. But great question, Pete. I loved it. Loved it.
All right, so Germany won the Euro Cup. Who cares?
I watched some of it on highlight. I was looking for a little bit more television coverage of that. But again, is that the most prudent thing for these players to be doing? They are now up on the precipice of their own basketball season. And they just went through this tournament that, from what I could understand, had some very, very high-level competition, some very, very high-level players. I believe Joker was playing in it. I believe Giannis played in it. I mean, you had some really, really great talent in there. How do you then say that we're doing the best that we can for the health and wellness of these athletes? I really think you get to a point, we talked about this last week, a decompression point, a basketball fasting point, which allows you to re-energize and come back. I think what you're going to see this year is a lot of those guys that went into this Euro basketball, extended themselves all the way through the summer. I credit them for wanting to play with their country. But what I would venture to say you're going to see is, A, a higher injury rate amongst those players coming into this season.
Yep.
B, you're going to see a little bit more lackluster performance from some of them because they're fried. They're burnt out. They're not able to give the maximum amount over now 82-plus games. If you're a playoff team, you're almost into 100 games. Adding on the Euro basketball, I get it. Olympics, I get it. But let's not say that it's not taking a toll and that it doesn't have some residual effect, because it obviously does, and it will continue to.
This all started with the Olympics every 4 years, and that's fine. That's something that's, it's almost like a one-off. So you have it every 4 years. You make allowances in the schedule for it, but this sounds like it's going to be every year. And do these players, with more and more European players in the league, is that going to affect the league?
Okay, it's a machine, right?
Yeah.
And the machine just eats. The machine's got to eat, and the machine will eat anything in its past. The machine will eat LeBron James if it comes a time to eat LeBron James. The machine has no care or consideration for who is in their realm. And we're going to discuss this when we get to the NIL portion of the show. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say this, and this is a little bit of it's a contradiction in terms a bit of the NIL. And what I mean is this: if you right now went in and cleared out the entire Notre Dame football team and replaced them with 135 new players, or whatever the maximum roster allowable is, that stadium, that bookstore, those concession stands will be filled to the max, regardless of who's in that uniform. I get the coaches are now, well, we got to give up $8 million for this guy because he's the best quarterback of all time. You could it's what we say about the revenue piece of it. How directly tied to the revenue are actually the players? We'll talk about that later. All right, Pete, let's keep rolling.
All right, so question number 3. Looking at the NBA season dates, they're playing a lot of games overseas. Abu Dhabi, Melbourne, Canada, China. During the season, they're going to be playing outside of the country. I understand them trying to bring basketball everywhere, but is this going to be very similar to what the NFL experiences? These teams are going to get a lot of jet lag, and it's going to affect their seasons too. What do you think about the premise? I mean, Mexico City.
Go back to the machine. They don't care.
Okay.
They got to sell. So we're going to Abu Dhabi. Darn the torpedoes. We don't care. Man, they're going to be exhausted when they get home. It's the same reason that the NBA could easily, if they had some real excellent scheduling people come in, they could eliminate back-to-back games. They could take them out. ask yourself, so many players don't want to do it. That's not a rationale to take it out.
Right.
But is it contradictory to their wellness and health? That would be a good reason to take it out. If it's working against the player, the athlete, then it's something to look at, identify, and say, is that an obstacle or is that a strength? If it's a weakness and a liability, you try and limit it or you try and take it out immediately. But right now what you have is, it's really prevalent to me, is that they really don't care about the individuals that are there. The colleges don't care if they graduate. The pros don't care if they get hurt. They'll find somebody else new. They'll grab somebody else and they'll move them into uniform, and it won't matter one bit. LeBron James goes out tomorrow. The NBA replaces him and finds somebody new. The music keeps playing. That's all I can tell you. It will not stop.
And apparently they found a sponsor for the much loved NBA Cup. The Emirates are sponsoring the Cup this year.
Wow.
And your playoffs, your knockout rounds, playoffs, and championship are only going to be available on Amazon Prime.
So I think you just answered your question about why Abu Dhabi
Yeah?
in the preseason games, because they're going after all that money. And they want to grow basketball.
Crazy.
They want to grow basketball. But the NBA is on the precipice of the Roman Empire right now. They're on the precipice of growing too big while everything at home is falling apart. That's where they are right now. That's how I see the NBA. Really, really not great leadership going on there right now. They have a lot of things going on that are correctable. They're not even looking to correct them. One would be shortening the actual game. Second, shortening the actual season. And if I'm agents, I'm keeping these guys out of all of this stuff. You don't have to go to Eurobasket and play. I get it. There's a tug on the person. Probably you get a little bit of government heat. You might get a call from somebody inside the government says, hey, we really need you.
Yeah.
I would resist it at all costs. Pete, great job, though. Great job.
It's been tougher getting questions now with the off season because it kind of gets nuanced now of how to phrase questions and how to pick stuff out of the topics that are available right now. The players don't show up till the earliest players show up is the 23rd.
Yeah, and you're going to get a few, tidbits here and there of preseason and different stuff like that. But the nice part about it is the camps will end. The rosters will coagulate. Right now you're looking at college basketball, although there are some players still out there unsigned right now. Most of it, I don't know how you sign a player now unless you have trimesters. I don't even know how you would do that right now after ad drop is passed, after all the academic part of it has been passed. But again, that might be on my comprehension right now. But there are
bet
players.
You somebody will figure out how to do it.
There are players still available. The season hasn't started, so. Since we've made this into a semi-professional league, what really value does the degree have to these young men? It becomes a secondary piece. It becomes a subservient piece to the whole formula, and that's the real shame of a lot of it, to be honest with you. But Pete, I'm going to jump in right now with a Super 25. Right up on it now. We've got a lot of the movement has stopped. Like I said, there's a few pieces still to go, but I'm going to come out right now and say that I don't know. There could be some. There might be some hidden pieces, but I don't know that there's any piece right now that goes and dramatically changes anybody's fortunes right now. Most of the big players that were on the move have moved. Darian Williams, Boogie Fland, Donovan Dent, they all have moved, and they've all settled into their new schools and are working out with their new team and getting ready with their new team. So I think now you've seen a little bit of this, and I'm going to go through my top 25 right now, but I'm going to give you just a little bit of a rationale. What you hear from Rick Pitino right now is a little bit of prophecy. Coach Pitino's been around a long time. He's had some great comments about the NIL. He's had some great comments about the point guard position recently and the death of that point guard position. I don't know that I fully agree with that personally, but what you heard from Coach Pitino a while back when they were talking about one of his teams in a post-game conference, he was talking about we're just not athletic enough. We just don't have that athleticism to be able to go out and cover the floor. What you saw last year from St. John's team and their employment of this switching defense really, really took teams out of their offense, but it also showed in 1 year that Rick Pitino had his eye, when his comment was made at that time, his eye was on becoming completely more athletic. Now you go 2 years further with a really good payroll, a really, really good energy about their program, and right now you're looking, excuse me, you're looking at, for me, I think that Rick Pitino's 2-year program here has completely recalibrated their program. They are number 1 in the country right now in the zone. I've seen them listed 8th. That's crazy. I've seen them listed lower than 8th. That's even crazier. I've got them number 1, and I'm going to be honest, folks, I think there's a pretty big gap between them and number 2 and 3. If I go number 2, I'd say the gap is a little smaller with Houston, the Cougars, Coach Sampson. I mean, what an unbelievable run they have had, and they are returning quite a bit. I'm a leaner towards what have you returned? Yeah. What have you been able to retain? What have you been able to sustain? Because I think that matters, especially now. I think it has a higher value right now. Houston returns a lot. I'm going Purdue. Braden Smith, maybe the best point guard in the country, is back. They have Trey Kaufman-Renn, who I would say is one of the top 15 that I said, the top 10 that had he entered into the NBA draft this year, he probably would have been a lottery consideration, or he would have certainly been in the first round. And I think the NIL was a consideration there in bringing him back into the fold and allowing him to remain in college for that extra year. That certainly has helped Purdue. They also have Daniel Jacobson, who hurt his foot last year. They brought him out a little bit of a redshirt year. He's 7'4", kind of like Zach Edey was, and they also have some other pieces there at Purdue. I think they're solid. I think you could go back to the year when we had UConn, was running number 1 and running hot, and there was Houston was in that mix, and there was some other teams in that mix that kind of formulated a little bit of a front. I think that you're going to see that as your eminent front this year. St. John's, Houston, and Purdue, 1, 2, 3. 2-3-1, 3-2-1, doesn't matter, but that's kind of where they are. I'm big on this Louisville team, Pete. I'm big on this Louisville team. I think they could win the ACC this year. I'm also very big on this Texas Tech team. If Darian Williams had not left Texas Tech to go into another situation where he wound up going to NC State, I think Texas Tech, I would put them up either 1 or 2 in the country right now. I've got the Huskies. People have put the Huskies over St. John's. And based upon what I saw last year, it was total domination by St. John's. St. John's is returning a lot of players, Zubi Ejiofor, and they're really loading up in the portal.
Well, has St. John's solved the puzzle of NIL in the portal?
I think they have, because they were just knocking them out one after the next, and there wasn't. Because what happens in the portal too, Pete, is you can put your name in, but you don't want contact. So it's really a formality. You put down this thing of, I'm in the portal, but no contact. That means you've already picked your school.
Right.
So essentially you're in there and you're in the portal, but you know where you're going already, because a lot of those things have taken place prior. Shouldn't be, but we all know.
Right.
Connecticut, I got him in the 6th spot. Silas Damari. I think you're going to get a really, really big year out of solo ball, Connecticut fans. But I'm going to give you one other name, and I think this young man, if they center around him and really make him the focal point, Taris Reed could be one of the best big men in the country for UConn. BYU, my God, they're loaded. Absolutely loaded. Everybody's excited to see A.J. DeBonsa. Everybody wants to see the new freshman. Here's a name I would throw at you. It's a Baylor transfer, Robert Wright. Transferred in. He's a guard. He's a senior junior-type presence that's going to be able to really mentor DeBonsa in his first year. But they've got some other good players as well. Richie Saunders. The team's loaded. Team's really loaded, and they're playing out of an NBA model right now. I'm going to go at 8. Arkansas, never really been a big Calipari fan, but they're a team that's been able to retain, sustain, and also add. They lost Boogie Flan, but they brought in some really good players. Their backcourt, is really, really solid. Okay, you go to Duke, number 9. I just don't know, Pete. I just don't know, because they're the new Kentucky, really. John Calipari had Kentucky. They had them all locked up with one-and-dones. And if you look at the NBA right now, they're absolutely littered with Kentucky one-and-dones. Duke is in the same format. But if you look at what happened to Kentucky, it became very, very difficult to sustain because you were losing your best players every single year. I think the same thing's happening with Duke. They brought in Cam Boozer. They brought in his brother. They've got some other pieces. But I think Louisville might have the arm on them right now. Michigan, number 10. I'm not a huge Elliot Cadeau fan. I know they were excited to sign him. They're going to bring him in. I'm just not, crazy about him.
You're
but
not
they
sold on him?
I'm not. He was at North Carolina and didn't really show me a ton there, but they did bring in Yaxo Lendenberg, probably one of the biggest portal prizes that was out there from UAB, so we'll see how that goes. Donovan Dent, interesting story. UCLA. Donovan Dent grew up as a young man and wanted to go to UCLA, except UCLA didn't recruit him. He wound up going to New Mexico, played for Richard Pitino out at New Mexico, and really formed himself into a great guard. Another NBA prospect. Had he been out and gone in this year, he's another guy that climbs into that top 15, that top 20, who decided to go and return to college because of NIL. Now, he winds up at UCLA. Here's the thing I love about it. UCLA fluked him the first time around. You're not good enough. That's basically what it says. We don't think you're good enough. Now they got to come back, bag in hand. And I pray to God that Donovan Dent made them pay. I pray to God he took that bag and held it and opened it up and said, keep going, Coach Cronin, keep going because you didn't want me the first time, but now you want me, and now you got to pay. I love it. Kentucky, Otega Owe is really, really going to help there. Again, these are the guys I just keep pulling off that were first-round picks if they went out. Had a good combine, decided to come back. You don't know if Kentucky's pulling on that string. The other side saying, okay, we were at 2.2 million, but we can go to 2.7, we can go to 2.8, we can go to 2.9, and then all of a sudden the young man says, okay, I'm going back to college. There's those tension and those negotiations going on absolutely right now. I love Alabama's backcourt. I like LeBaron Philon. Again, another young man went into the combine, took his name out. Again, is he a first rounder? I don't know, but he certainly would have been a guy drafted, and then he decided to come back to Alabama. I think that's really going to help them. As Tahad Pettiford, another. I have Auburn in the 14th spot. Auburn coming back with Tahad Pettiford. Huge for them. Huge for them. But Auburn lost a ton up front. They lost Janai Boone. They lost Chad Baker-Mazzara. And they lost Dylan Cardwell up front. They got some work to do. But if anybody can get it done, it's Bruce Pearl. I'm not sure that there's been some kind of smoke around Bruce Pearl running for Senate. And I'm not sure that might not be holding up some of his NIL, some of his recruitment, some of the other stuff, because he's been very outspoken politically lately and has a chance. I appreciate his courage and his bravery, but I'm not sure that people aren't looking at this saying, because what you do is you open the door for your opponents to negative recruit you. When they said, Pearl's running for Senate, why are you going to Auburn? Pearl's not even going to be there, So that little thing leaks out and it's bad news. I know that he tried to put the milk back in the bottle, but I think it might have been a little bit too late. I got Florida 15. I don't know, Pete. I might have blown this one a little bit. They're the returning national champions. I think they have a chance to return. They're probably a top 10 team. Xavion Lee and Boogie
How many players bugged out?
Not many.
Okay.
Not many. They went pro. You lost Walter Clayton, who went pro.
Yep.
He was a senior. You lost Will Richard, who went pro. He was, an older guy. So they lost it to the right reasons. But no, they're not losing guys. Like Boogie Fland came from Arkansas over to Florida. That's, makes you go, Was he unhappy at Arkansas? Was there something at Florida? It certainly wasn't a money issue, I can tell you that. Kansas. Can you imagine? They just cleaned out 2 assistant coaches, longtime assistant coaches, Norm Roberts, Freddie Quarterbaum, brought in some new guys. That can have a really good positive impact at first. It can also lead to a little bit of a hucklebuck where the new players have to get used to the new coaches. You also have another situation there where they're turning them out pretty good there too. They have Darren Peterson, who was number 1 and 2 with A.J. DeBonsa as the best player in the country. They also have Flory DeBongo back, but I don't know that they have enough. There's a lot of pieces missing there. Arizona in the 17. Here you're looking at Kansas 16, Arizona 17. When have you ever seen those numbers attached to them in such a way? And we also don't have North Carolina in this top 25 feet. I don't know when the last time that happened. Illinois, they're going all Euro. Basically going all Euro out there. Brad Underwood going completely Euro roster. They're spreading the floor. They're playing a completely European style. And I think it's been working for them. I just don't know how much of a longevity you have with that, especially with the talent base that Illinois has around it. You have Chicago, Indiana, Kentucky. There's some really, really good pieces there. So we'll see. Wisconsin, Greg Gard, he gets it done, man. He gets it done. I think they're probably having a little bit of difficulty in the portal, but who's not? Iowa State, they folded up on me last year. I was really, really high on them. That's why I'm putting them at 20, but I'm probably snake bit on that a little bit. They're probably a top 15 team. Creighton, how can you go against Greg McDermott? You really can't. Tennessee in 22. Rick Barnes has a lifetime contract right now, so he's playing with house money. He's going to be up there having fun, playing loose, and I'd like to see his teams get a little deeper into the tournament because they've had a little bit of a folding lawn chair episode here the last couple of tournaments. I'd like to see him stand up a little straighter. Will Wade, NC State, maybe not right now, but very, very soon. I got Gonzaga, 24. I know they're experiencing some NIL difficulties, but I just don't know how do you go against Mark Few? How do you go against what he's accomplished? And they have Graham Ike back. And here's one for you, Pete. Number 25. We're going to give the A-10 its due respect because it's a great league, really, really powerful mid-major conference. We're going with the GW Revolutionaries in the 25 spot. Westfield State's own Chris Caputo has done an amazing job building that program. We're telling you right now, folks, keep an eye on the Revs because they, again, have a really good core of returning players and some very, very nice portal additions that are going to add. I think they got great chemistry. Seen a few of their workouts on social media, and they're getting after it. I can tell you that right now. I love the vibration around that program right now. All right, I'm going to give you a quick dirty double dozen of here's the best players coming back. Here's the guys that didn't go pro, and again, we're going to give you a little bit of a tip to say of the hat, to a little tip of the old Tamil Shanter to say he might have been a pro. He stayed out of it because of the NIL. All right, Braden Smith from Purdue. I don't know what his NBA career is going to look like, but he's having a great time over at Purdue, and he'll be considered one of the greatest Purdue players of all time, and really, really up there high on the assist list of all-time point guards. You got Trey Kaufman-Wren, his buddy at Purdue. That 1-2 punch is going to be tough, folks. Going to be tough. I think in the Big Ten, they're going to be looked at, and they're going to be looked at hard. J.T. Toppin from Texas Tech I'm going to say might, but he could be the best player in the country, folks. Otega Owe from Kentucky. Take it away. Kentucky's got to get rolling, but I think with them returning Otega Owe, they've got a shot. What a terror of that conference they have, though. It's like a nightmare on Elm Street every single night in the SEC. All right, Milo Suzan made a decision to go back again, first-round pick, no question, made a decision to go back to Houston. They have Tugler. They have Uzan. They have Emmanuel Sharp. They're loaded. They're loaded, folks. All right, Ian Jackson, here's one of the athletes that I'm talking about that Rick Pitino has now moved in. Cardinal Hayes graduate from the Bronx, returning home to St. John's is a huge, huge thing for St. John's. Keeping the New York players home has always been St. John's strength. Ian Jackson went to North Carolina, spent a year in the ACC. As he went into the portal again, he was one of the gentlemen who went into the portal and right to St. John's. Right to St. John's. Jason Sannon from Arizona State, now going to St. John's. They have just a really, really good core and combination of wings and bigs there that I really like. Ian Jackson's an exciting player. The Garden's going to love him. A.J. DeBonsa, BYU. This isn't in any order. DeBonsa might be the Cooper flag again. Guy who goes in for one and done and winds up as the number one pick overall. They're saying Darren Peterson from Kansas, or they're saying DeBonsa right now, but we'll let the season play out. My guy Donovan Dent, I hope he held up Mick Cronin big time with that bag at UCLA. Darren Peterson from Kansas, great, great rookie. He could be better than DeBonsa. Cam Boozer, there's your 1, 2, 3 of the players you need to keep an eye on right now. Boozer, DeBonsa, and also the young man, Darren Peterson. Alex Condon from Florida, that's one of the guys we talked about, another one, Pete. He was in. He was out. He looked in the combine. He said, I can go back to Florida, get a really nice bag, and maybe repeat. I'm throwing Tarish Reed in here. I'm a big fan of this guy. He's a good big man. He can catch. He can turn. He can do some things. I would give the UConn people just one little tidbit of advice: build your offense around Taris Reed this year, and you'll get some really good results out of it. Yaxel Landenberg from Michigan, from UAB, again, top 15 for sure. Top 15 for sure. Tahad Pettiford, we talked about it. Auburn going back, could have been a first rounder. LeBaron Phelan, Alabama, could have been a first rounder. Flory Badongo, we talked about him a moment ago, going for Kansas. Here's a guy that kind of folded up last year with injury. Tamim Lipsy, Iowa State, great guard. Let's see what he comes back with. Darian Williams, NC State, he's unbelievable around the basket. He might be one of the best one-on-one players in the game right now. Graham Ike, returning for Gonzaga. And we like that because when Mark Few gets a couple of guys around him for a couple of years, you're going to see a really good product.
Yeah.
Ryan Conwell from Louisville. He's a transfer from Xavier. Shooter. Maybe the best in the country from the perimeter. Henry Visar from North Carolina. Big man. I like him, and I like him a lot. They need it bad. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going 3 A-10 guys right in a row. St. Bonaventure, Woj, busting it, going into Europe, really working his butt off, going and getting Achille Leonardo from Italy. I love this young man. He's got a European game that's going to fit very, very well into Mark Schmidt's system. Watch out for Achille Leonardo this year. 23, Miles Rubin from Loyola, the Ramblers. This guy can play. This guy's really good. I would have him on my NBA board right now as a draft pick. No questions asked. And the last one, we're going to close. If you're going to call the Revolutionaries for number 25, you better back it up. And we do with Rafael Castro. The transfer from Providence has retained his energy and his vision for GW. He wants to lead that program forward, and he's the guy that can really be a linchpin for them. Unbelievable player, great shot blocker, has presence, and certainly going to factor into a lot of NBA draft boards for sure. Pete, Power 15 for the NBA. We're rolling them. Now we've gotten all the trades, all of the stuff going down. Who signed who drafted who's making the team, who's redshirting, who's getting kicked out to a two-way. We got a lot of that stuff going down. There's no way you cannot consider OKC Thunder right now 68-14, and we're going to talk about their draft dominance coming up, where they're poised. They're poised as the number one franchise in the NBA right now, OKC Thunder. I'm going to go with the Cavaliers. This is what happens in sports sometimes, and I've alluded to this. We watched the Virginia Cavaliers one year become one of the teams to lose. They were the first team, I believe, lose to a 16th seed in the NCAA tournament. Had never, ever happened before. Then it happened. But then what happened was UVA went home, recalibrated, and came back and won the national title the next year. So the Cavaliers are basically intact from where they were last year, except for the fold-up in the playoffs to the Indiana Pacers. They had an unbelievable year. Coach Atkinson is back. I like the Cavaliers. I think they'll be dominant in Eastern Conference. 64-18 last year. 64-18. 64-18 was also the Celtics record when the Celtics won it. So it shows you what kind of rarefied air they were in. I like the Houston Rockets, Pete. I like the Houston Rockets. 52-30 last year. Ime Udoka, one of the top rising coaches in the country, but they didn't stand pat on what they did. They went out and shook it up big time and brought in Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant will provide some very good senior leadership in that locker room. He's an elite scorer. See what he's got left in the tank, but if he has anything left in the tank, it might be enough to put Houston over the top to challenge OKC. I don't know who else can challenge them right now, although I think you might see something from the Lakers. We'll talk about that in a second. Number 4, the New York Knicks. They return a good core. Jalen Brunson. They've got the big cat inside. They've got some good wings. They've got some good players. OG Anunoby I like a lot. I just think they've got some issues around their defense. As much as they were supposed to be a great defensive team, last year I just didn't see a whole lot of that with some of their perimeter people, also from their big men. But I think you have a new coaching change there. It'll be exciting to see which direction they head. Los Angeles Lakers, I have them picked 5th because I want to see what happens with Luka and LeBron. I want to see that LNL for the whole season. I want to see if they can pull it together. I'm going to say one other thing, too. I love the new management. The Lakers are sold, and the new management came in, and they have a no-nonsense approach. The guy himself, who's the owner, this guy's got billions of dollars. He says, we want ballers. And when I heard that, I said, this guy gets it. This guy understands. And so they're going out and they're trying to surround the two pieces that they have with some other good pieces. And I think, I don't know about Reddick. We'll see. But right now, I've got him picked fifth. I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets at 650-32 last year. You got the Joker. You're always going to be good. But they need help from Murray. They need help from some of their ancillary players that were the real reason that they won that championship a few years back was because of their NBA roster, their bench, and their depth, and that really carried them. Right now, they're kind of not in that same position. And again, there's somebody who made a really, really late season coaching change with Coach Malone and Calvin Booth, the general manager, being replaced really, really late. The young Adelman, Rick Adelman's son is in there. We'll see how that goes as well. I had a ton of respect for Coach Malone, and so I'll wait to see on that one, but I have them picked 6 just based on the talent that they have. 7, Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think they've done a lot, but they added Miles Turner from the Pacers, and with Giannis, that gives you a lot up front. They don't have Dame Lillard, although they're eating $23 million of his contract still. Another thing we've talked about here that we don't agree with, but I see the Bucks being somewhat resurgent this year, making a little bit more noise than they have in the past. I don't know about Doc Rivers as the guy to lead them, though. Minnesota Timberwolves 49-33 last year. I thought that trade kind of clipped them where they went Julius Randle for Big Cat. I think that upset their locker room a little bit, but at the end of the season, they were playing very good basketball, made a run in the playoffs. I like their coaching staff, and I love Anthony Edwards. I think he's one of the bright stars in the game. So we're going to put the Timberwolves right up there, but watch out for this team in the East. The Detroit Pistons, the absolute most improved team, one of the most improved teams in NBA history from year to year. And now Cade Cunningham, a really, really good core around him. They're tough. They kind of are emblematic of the Detroit, mantra. It's a Motor City, madmen. They're coming out of there with a work ethic. They're coming out of there with a grit and a determination that mirrors the actual city that they live in. And I love it. I thought they were flat on their back years ago. We had our own segment called Firing on All Pistons. But to see their growth in 1 year, I'm really excited to see what happens to them this year. Watch them in the Eastern Conference. Here's another group, Orlando Magic. They have a really good young core. Paolo Banchero, one of the better young players in the league. They have the Wagner brothers. They have some talent on this team. They could get going. I think they've really got to sustain throughout the year. They have this wildly kind of streaky element about their team where they'll go on runs and play great, and then they get clipped and go on and bang and forth. Some of it's to injury because they're not as deep as everybody else, but the Magic went 41-41 last year, and I think they could get better this year. I think they will be better. Okay, you got the Clippers in the 11th spot. The biggest part with prognosticating on the Clippers is you don't know who's going to be in uniform. James Harden, you can count on him. But then you have, Kawhi Leonard, you have some other guys out there that are just in and out of the lineup so much that it's really, really difficult. I think if the Clippers are firing with all their pieces, they've got a good shot. But it's really difficult to tell because they very seldom fire with all their pieces. I'll give them 10, though. I'll give them 11. They're in that spot. All right, here I took a chance, Pete, and I could get a lot of flack for this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. 12, the Philadelphia 76ers.
And
you say, Rich, they were 24-58 last year, and you're putting them in your Power 15? Listen, you got George, you got Embiid, you have Tyrese Maxey, you had McCain. The entire team was wiped out by injury last year. And now you're bringing in VJ Edgecombe, one of the really exciting players in the draft. If everybody stays healthy there, they can run third or fourth in the Eastern Conference. Maybe even challenge for the Eastern Conference because there's a lot in flux there with the Celtics kind of being knocked out of the box. I went with them at 12, Pete, though. And again, let's remember this day, folks. Let's remember this day in the zone history when Rich said they would finish 12th, and now they're in the lottery for the NBA pick. Who knows? Golden State Warriors, you got to go with Steph Curry. But again, they got just so many pieces on that team that I think need to be moved and changed in order to revamp and rebuild around Curry. You ain't going to get it with Draymond. You're not going to get it with the pieces they got on this team. Jimmy Butler coming in, yeah, maybe that can help, but you're going to need some significant help in the center, power forward position, and then determine what do you want from Steph Curry. Is he a point guard? He's going to play the point. Is he a two guard? Then he's going to play the two and shoot the ball all the time. He can play the point and shoot the ball all the time too, but then you better have a Klay Thompson or somebody on that wing next to him that's a dead-eye shooter. And I hate to inform the Warriors of this, but Jimmy Butler's not that guy. All right, Memphis Grizzlies. I'm a Zach Edey fan. I'd love to see what happens with some of their mercurial players. They've got some young talent on this team. But again, you got to see what happens. When you've had guys sit out for gun charges, you've had guys sit out for different suspensions for different things. This is the NBA, man. You got to have everything loaded up, especially if you're the Memphis Grizzlies. Everything has to fall in place for you to be 500. They were 48-34 last year. I think they can be good. I think things will fall in place. I'm going to put the Celtics in 15, Pete. 15, it was 61-21 last year, but I mean, good chance no Jason Tatum for most or the entire year. You don't have Porzingis anymore. You traded Jrue Holiday. I just don't see, where all of this is coming from. They went and they traded a couple of picks that they had to go sign a guy who was undrafted when they could have drafted him with one of their second-round picks. I don't get it. But I'm going to put him 15th because we're in Massachusetts and I don't want the flack. I don't want all the Celtics fans calling me up.
Well,
Why did you abandon us? I didn't abandon you. You abandoned yourselves.
But if they simplify things, might this be better? I mean, they're wiping out their payroll. I get that, but Celtics have always been a team. Like they always haven't been an individual star team. So they're getting rid of some of the individual stars. Are they going back to their roots?
I would love that. We're going to find out. The thing that I'm really excited about for this year, the 26 year, is Jaylen Brown really worth $50 million? Because I said no.
I don't think any player is worth $50 million.
Well, in the market that they're in, they're giving them $50 million. Is he one of those players? I say no. But now you're up in the $70 million range with SGA and some of the other great players. So is he worth $50 million? At the moment, he wasn't worth $50 million to me. Now, in retrospect, is he worth $50 million? Probably not still. All right, Pete, here we're going to roll through this. This is a big list, so we're going to roll through it, but it's going to go pretty quickly. I thought this was very, very cool. Somebody did this for us. NBA MVP by season from 1980 to 2025. This is Rich Sutter's basketball life right here. All right? 1980, I was just getting out of high school, just entering the coaching business. This is my coaching career. 1980, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So many of these guys, you can call them by one name and you'll know who they are.
Sure, yeah.
81, Dr. J. From UMass, the Minutemen, 1982 and 83, Moses Malone, the big foe. We're going to knock them out in 4 games, and that's exactly what they did on their way to winning the championship for the Philadelphia 76ers. In 1984, 1985, and 1986, Larry Bird was your MVP from the Boston Celtics. 1987, goes Magic Johnson. 1988 is Michael Jordan. 1989 and 1990 is Magic for back-to-back. Now you go 91, 92 is Michael Jordan again. 93, let's throw in Chuck Barkley. 94, Hakeem, the Dream. Chuck took it in 93. 95 was David Robinson, took his physical for the Naval Academy on his knees. We all know that. 1996 is Michael Jordan again. He had won it in 92. He's back in 96. 97 was Karl Malone. 98 was Jordan. 99 was Malone. Back and forth. We remember Jordan putting the Utah Jazz and Craig Elo away with a killer crossover, possibly a little bit of a push-off as well, but then making the game-winning shot to eliminate Karl Malone and Stockton's hopes of getting that ring, which everybody says validates the greats. It's not really proven out, though, when you have Stockton and Malone with no ring, and they have to be considered as 2 of the greats of all time, in my opinion. So 99, we go Karl Malone. Here comes 2000, the Big Diesel, Shaq. 2001, Allen Iverson. Back-to-back 2003, 2002, Timmy Duncan, one of the greats of all time. 2004, wound up with the Celtics, Kevin Garnett. I believe he won the MVP when he was with the Timberwolves. So 2005, 2006, Steve Nash back-to-back. I could see one of those. I could not see both. I didn't see Steve Nash winning it back-to-back. 2007, you got Dirk Nowitzki. Now, Nash is from Canada. Dirk Nowitzki is from Germany. Here you see a little bit of the NBA trickling in that Euro right now. We're starting to fly in the Euros in the 2000s, the new millennium. Here we go with some of that stuff. 2008, you got Kobe. 2009 and 10 is LeBron. 2011, Derrick Rose broke up a 4-year streak, which would have been a 5-year streak for LeBron, who went 2012, 2013. In 2014, Kevin Durant won his MVP. 15 and 16 went to possibly the greatest shooter of all time, Steph Curry. And then you go 2017, Russell Westbrook. I think he averaged a triple-double that year. 2018 was James Harden. 19 and 20 was Giannis. 21 was the Joker. 22 was the Joker. 23 was the Joker, but they gave it to Embiid. 24 was the Joker. SGA 25 was the Joker, but they gave it to SGA. I'm talking Joker 5 straight years there. If you average a triple-double and your team is relevant and not stuck in the basement, my God, you deserve a shot. Okay, here's some of the – I want to keep an eye on the clock here too because I have NIL information. One of the things that Pete and I talked about was we needed a whole show to go over NIL. As I started to dig into it, I said, we don't need a whole show. It'll put everybody to sleep because I think that was the intention. They have so much in there. We'll talk about a little bit of it. But here's the NBA for you, Pete. Larry Bird, these are his career highs. 60 points, 21 rebounds, 17 assists, 9 steals, and 5 blocks. Now, this did not happen on the same night, from what I can tell. Because those would have been unbelievable games. These are their career bests of all time. Here's Magic, 46 points, 18 rebounds. You ready for this one? 24 assists in one game. 9 steals and 5 blocks. Unbelievable. MJ, ready for this? 69 points was his high. 18 rebounds was his high. 17 assists, 10 steals, 6 blocks. Crazy. Here's Clyde the Glide Drexler, 50 points, 18 rebounds, 16 assists, 10 steals, and 5 blocks. Unbelievable. Dominique Wilkins, 57 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists, 7 steals, 6 blocks. Chuck Wagon, Charles Barkley, 47 points. Listen to this one, 33 rebounds, 14 assists. I never saw him pass the ball, so I'm shocked at 14 assists. 7 steals, and 7 blocks. When you talk about 14 assists for Barkley, at least 7 of those had to be mistakes that just bounced off of his leg onto some other teammate's hands because there's no way Chuck was going that deep. All right, we got Wilt. Now, this is an interesting one. 100 points, 55 rebounds, 21 assists, but I had to go deep dive on this because the NBA did not start counting steals and blocks until 73-74. So this is unofficial that Chamberlain would have had 23 blocks and 11 steals in a game. Unofficial. Karl Malone, 61 points, 23 rebounds, 10 assists, 7 steals, 5 blocks. Crazy. John Stockton, 34, 9 rebounds, 28 assists. NBA record, 9 steals and 3 blocks. How did John Stockton get 3 blocks in a game? I'd love to know who shot he blocked because they probably heard about that in their own locker room. Kareem, 55, 34 rebounds, 14 assists, 7 steals and 11 blocks. Unbelievable. The big man out of New York City Power Memorial and my grandmother's parish, St. Jude's Parish in Manhattan. Robinson, the big admiral, 71 points. 24 rebounds, 11 assists, 7 steals. Here's it is, Pete. 12 blocks. Hakeem, 52, 25 rebounds, 12 assists, 8 steals, and 12 blocks. Unbelievable. Those are the greats. Those are the greats. You know, and we just throw that up there because that's just old school right there. That's a lot of those guys are old school that these young players have never heard of. The guys on my basketball team think the 100-point game is a hoax. They don't believe it happened. They said you can't find video of it anywhere. I was like, well, that was before video cameras were made, I think. You know, at least with all the technology they have. Okay, Pete, here's my NIL segment. This is as deep as I want to get into this because as I started going down this rabbit hole, I started to get nauseous. I started to feel sick, and I didn't think I'd be able to get through it if we brought a whole lot more of this stuff to the table. Okay, this is what I say all the time. How do these employees deserve such a hard, large share of revenue earned? How much money do you think McDonald's makes? Do you think the people behind the counter are getting the revenue?
No.
No, they're being paid an hourly wage.
Yep.
You think the people at Walmart are getting a share of the revenue? They have profit sharing at Walmart? No, they're employees. So I say it again. Notre Dame football could empty out their 100 and plus player roster right now, replace it with all new players, and they would sell out every stadium that they play in this year. They'll be on television from now until the end of time, and they'll make over $1.5 million in the bookstore every single day, regardless of who's on that team. I know you think everybody's caught up in the superstar stuff. Most people root for the team. That's who's providing the whole forum here. That's who opened the McDonald's. That's who opened the Walmart. It was Boston College. It was BYU. They spent the money, and now they house it within the confines of their establishment. I think they're way off. Okay. So you have player differential. Okay? Player differentials in your own locker room. Some guy, A.J. DeMonsa, is getting almost $7 million, they're saying. The last guy on BYU's team, he ain't getting $7 million. So you got locker room and player differential. A lot of the coaches are talking about this, I can assure you that. Program differential. Some schools in the same conference have a lot more money than others in order to apply their NIL deals, their portal relationships. In the same conference, they have way, way, way more money than some of their competitors in their conference. That's a problem. Lane or door number 2. All right, it seems like there's more than 2 doors as well. But there's at least as long as that door number 2 stays open, it's almost impossible because I'm going to tell you what they said here because you can now be considered name, image, and likeness with a single media post. One single media post is qualified as name, image, and likeness. Or it could go all the way up to long-term endorsement. Basically what they say is, and again, I want to get into that a little bit in a minute, but basically what they're saying is it can be anything you want. It can be anything you want as long as we go into one of these couple of different pockets, buckets, or whatever it is they're operating from. Okay? What I want to go into also is I can understand a court saying, hey, you need to start paying these players. But who came up with this model? Who came up with this format? Because when does a court not only tell you that you're not constitutionally driven, but then they get to give you the remedy as well? And I think that's what a lot happened here, and I think this is a huge overstep by some of these areas, because if this is going to go into law, that would need to be formulated in Congress. And what we're doing is we're seeing this activism and judicial overreach from the bench, and where they're now actually telling these schools, okay, this is what you're going to do. And I think that they could have told them that you have to do this, but I don't think it was within their purview to tell them how to do it, where to do it, and what to do with it. I really don't see how they can do that with other businesses as well. Now, with a minimum wage, I guess they do that at points, but again, here's the deliverables. All right, this is what can be considered a deliverable. A single social media post, public appearances, commercials, product endorsement. Again, I haven't seen any of that. I don't see any of that around the country, around here, around all of these places with all these Division I schools. I haven't seen it. Okay? Company brand attachment. You have an agent, social media communications person, crisis management. It's what we call in the studio the fugazi fog. They want to just make it fake, and they want to cover it with enough fog so that nobody really knows what's going on. All right? Here are the actual elements of what is actual elements of fog. You've got moisture. Sometimes they throw in a little wind. Sometimes it's a little bit of rain, and that's what's happening right now. Private companies and brands, NIL collectives, which are donors, alumni, fans, anybody, entrepreneurial ventures, big words, big words. Those are just elements, okay? Entrepreneurial ventures means you can do whatever you want. So if you go out and somebody says we're going to start a tech company with AJ DeBonsa and pay him $25 million to be a part owner of that tech company, they can do that. Limits on the NIL, $20.5 million, but they left the door open to increase that as times go. And in reality, it's $20.5 million, but in reality, it's not. It's whatever they need it to be in the moment, depending upon how much scratch you can come up with. Okay, schools level up to the cap 20.5, revenue sharing, school distribution, increase the cap annually. These are all things that were talked about. But the third-party stuff, which is now, again, another door that they can come in, is uncapped, independent of enrollment, and basically deals with NIL collectives mostly. It's really, really crazy. I wanted to dive into it a little bit. I wanted to see who was what. Now, of the top 25, top NIL packages that I could research, that I could find, only 4 of them are basketball players.
Yeah,
The
I
other
believe that.
21 are football players.
Football players, yeah.
Okay, so you want to know where the real money's at. There's a 75% of that 20.5 share is going to football. AJ DeBonsa, he has Nike. He's got Red Bull. He's going to BYU, $4.1 million, upwards of $7 million. Okay? I wonder how he's going to eclipse that with his NBA contract. Yaxel Lendenberg, Michigan, UAB, $2.3 million. And again, he did an NBA dangle. What we call the NBA dangle was, I don't know, maybe I'll go pro. I'm not sure. But if I don't go pro, I'm going to Michigan. Okay, so now Michigan's on the hook to say, okay, we got to up our offer. Yaxel's thinking about pro. Today he woke up, he's thinking about pro. Up the offer. Today he's thinking about going to Michigan. Great, let's stand pat. Tomorrow he's thinking about going pro. We got to up the offer. They came out at 2.2, 2.3 million, but don't make no mistake, that NBA agent, the agents there was NBA dangling. They were dangling. Boogie Fland went from Florida to Arkansas, $2.1 million. And these guys are, DeBonsa was 4th on the list. Yaxel Lendenberg was 20th on the list. Boogie was 22. Donovan down, way down at the bottom. He got $2 million, and this time it's going to cost you, UCLA. You could have had him a whole lot cheaper, I think, on a first go-round. Okay, estimated revenues. This is where it got a little interesting for me. Football, $15,345,899. Now, I really, really want to know who came up with that number. Why did you come up with 15 million? Why couldn't you make it 16 million? Why wasn't it 15 flat? Why do we got to come up with this ridiculous number? When you divide that number, though, between 105 players, the average, Pete, the average is 146,151 per player. Now, that's an average. Your quarterback's getting 6 million. Your third string offensive lineman's not. Okay, and he's not getting 146,000 either.
$50.
He's getting a gift card to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, basketball comes in. Look at the disparity though. $3,279,161. That's what's been pledged. Now, but when you divide that by 15 players, it comes out to $218,610 per player. Again, Michael Jordan, he's getting paid on an NIL. Stanley Jordan, the bass player from the band who just happened to make it as a walk-on, he's not in that range. He's not in that range. Hockey, $552,813. Entire number. Baseball, $364,000. Here's where it gets a little creaky, Pete, and I can't believe that somebody hasn't yelled and screamed about this one. Women's basketball, $233,000, $913. Okay, you divide that by 14. I don't know why we're dividing by 14 when women can give 15 scholarships, but the only thing you could tell me is that they didn't fill out their rosters completely if the average is 14. But that comes out to $16,708 per player. Huge, huge disparities, Pete. Unbelievable.
And how many women are actually seeing that number?
None. Very
Right.
few.
Yeah.
Very few. You have 14 women's players, 15 women's players grabbing a contract. Everybody else is off the bag.
Yep.
Everybody else is off the bag. All right, Pete, I think I got 3 minutes, 2 minutes. What do you say?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, here's what I was talking about, draft dominant NBA. This I don't think is going to be healthy, but it has happened. I don't think it's going to be healthy this is one of those things where it has an inverse consequence both ways. I don't think the teams are going to benefit, and I certainly don't think the league is going to benefit, unless, of course, over time, some of these picks are now disseminated into other areas as parts of trades, which is how they accumulated theirs, which I don't get all of the rationale for that, but let's run through it. OKC, future. This is only, I couldn't get an actual date, but I know OKC's numbers extend out to 7 years. In the future, they have 13 first-round picks. 13. Future second-round picks, 16. The Nets, future first, 13. Future second, 19 second-round picks. What do you want to do with all those second-round picks? Better find the joker. Jazz, future first, 11. Future second, 7. That's a franchise that could use some help. And they actually have the space to put some of the players they're going to draft. OKC has all these draft picks. They got nowhere to put anybody. I'm interested to see how that all unfolds. Sam Presti, very bright guy. I'm sure he has a plan. The Rockets, 9 first and 4 second. Now you go all the way over here to Memphis, who has 9 and 6. 9 first and 6. So those 5 teams make up 107 picks in the future NBA. They own 55 first-round picks and 52 second-round picks. Now, if you have 11 out of 30, that's a team that has 11 picks out of 30. Then you have 10.4 out of 30 on the second round. You're way, way into some deep averages here with a couple of teams controlling all of this. If you have 107 total picks, first and second round, if you base it on 4 years, that's 107 out of 240 picks are owned by 5 teams. If you stretch it out to 5 years, 107 are owned by 300 picks. And then you go 107 over the 60 picks of 6 years. 60 times 6 is 360. That would give you 107 of 360. In any of those scenarios, it's not healthy for the NBA. In any of those scenarios, it's not healthy. Pete, another huge shout out to Will Dawkins from the Washington Wizards, who was our guest last week. Unbelievable. And again, folks, if you get some time, get this book because it's unbelievable. It's a great read. We'll talk to you soon, Pete. We're in the zone, baby.